Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Muhammad Tanvir Mahatab, and in this part we will be talking about how you can add collisions to the objects that we have learned to create, the shapes that we have learned to create in the previous video. So over here uh, we're gonna add collisions to these four certain objects. First of all, why do we need collision? So in case of the cylinder, as you can see that if any robot tries to drag this thing on the surface, they cannot do it because we haven't given a collision feature to it, or if it crashes with something, we wouldn't see the typical collision. It won't basically move because we haven't given that feature. So now to add that feature, let's talk about this cylinder first. So we're gonna go to this part, the cylinder transform file, right click on it and transform to solid. So when you do that, it actually it's saying that we have transformed this thing into a solid. And when you open the when you go to the drop down, we can see that there are new files that have been added: bounding object and physics. But when you go on to something where we haven't added a transformed into a solid or added any collision, for example in the cone transform, we can see there are no files with names like bounding object or physics. So that means when you have files like these, that means you have transformed that object into a solid. So now the next step is go to the bounding object, click on plus, and go to base nodes and try to get a similar shape object which resembles to the object you're trying to give a collision envelope to. So in this case it's a cylinder, so we're going to click on cylinder, and we have added a cylinder over here. But the height and radius of the collision object or the cylinder must be similar to the shape that we have created previously. So let's go to children, let's go to shape and geometry. So the height is 0.3, radius 0.15. We're gonna make this we can make similar changes over here as well. So height is 0.3 and that's 0.15. So we're gonna go over here and 1.5. So yeah, as you can see, the boundary we have already created a collision. So you can see this outer surface over here. And one more way of finding out whether we have applied collision to a certain object is by clicking. If you click on these objects where you haven't applied any collision to, the handling, or the way you can phrase it, that when you click on this file, then you can see the handles over here. However, when you click on the object, you don't see any handles. However, in case of a thing that you have applied collision to or transformed to a solid, you can see that you have already, when you click on it, we already have the handles over here. So that's how you can distinguish whether you have applied any collision to any object as well. So let's pick up the sphere. Let's add some collision to this sphere. So for that, we're gonna right click on it, transform to solid, and then go to this bounding object. Go to plus, go search for sphere, and then we're gonna add a sphere over here, and go to the drop down, and let's see the main shape that we have created. What was the radius that we used? We used a radius of 0.2 and subdivision of 0.5. So we're gonna change the radius to 0.2 and a subdivision of 5. Now as you can see, the surface is gonna be very smooth over here. It's a very smooth surface. However, when you decrease the subdivisions over here, let's say it's 3, so when you try to drag this sphere along on the surface by using a robot, it's going to be much more difficult, and it won't be as fluid as before because the surfaces are much more rough. So we can make the surfaces much more smooth by increasing the subdivisions over here. So I've given a subdivision of 5 in this context. We have already seen that how we have added solids or collisions to these two objects, but now we are going to see how we can add collisions to this object of wheel and the cone. So things are a bit different when it comes to this context. So I've already made this cone to a solid, as you can see over here. I'm going to go to the bounding object, click on plus, and go to base nodes. So over here, as you can see, there is no node that resembles to a cone. Now that's a huge problem. Then how we can create a collision envelope for this? Now to tackle that, what we can do is we can use multiple nodes to somehow create a rough shape of a cone. Now for that, what you can do is we can use two cylinders, one at the base and one at the top over here. But before doing that, if you remember that when you use multiple nodes, we need to create a group. So we create a group first. So over here inside children, that a children folder has been formed. We go to transform, and then in the first transform folder, we go inside children and we add a cylinder. Go to base nodes and then click on cylinder. So we just change the height and the radius. Let's give it a height of 0.2 and a radius of 0. Let's say 15. Yeah, that's fine. Now just translate it along the y-axis to bring it down, minus 0.15. Yeah, that's sort of perfect. Now we are done making this transformation, this transform file. Now what we can do is we need to create another one. So click on add, go to base nodes, click on transform. Now go to children, go to base nodes, click on cylinder. Inside there we can see there is a height specified and a radius. So I'll just click on this one and I'll bring it up to see the actual size of this. So let me change the height of this height to 0.2 maybe, and the radius is gonna have, it should have a bigger base area. So let's click on the cylinder. I'll try to the cylinder child over here, I try to drag it down a little bit and try to see, yeah, it sort of sticks perfectly. I need to increase the height a bit more. So let's click on this. Yep, and decrease the height 0.25. I think that sort of gives you a rough collision envelope for this cone. So we have created a collision envelope for this cone by using a group, and by going to the group we have created the cylinders. Now let's create the same thing, but now for this object over here. So this is the wheel that we have made, a wheel transform, but now the same problem arises that yes, now we need to create two cylinders, and the same way we did for this cone. Yes, you can do that, but we have another way. We can take a huge advantage by using some files that has already been present in the useful nodes folder. So I'm going to show you the example, and then you'll have a better understanding to it. So first of all, I'll transform this wheel to a solid, and then go to bounding object, click on plus, and as we'll create multiple use multiple objects, the same thing, we're going to create a group, and from group we're going to go to children, then add transform over here. So far everything is going to be similar to we have done before. But now what you need to do is, remember we created this object by wheel to wheel solid and going to children. So we're gonna go there, we're gonna go to group, we're gonna go under children. See, there are two transform files over here. So under children we have got the shape. We're gonna give a name to the shape. Let's give it wheel 01, and for the second transform we go inside children, search for the shape, and we give it wheel 02. And now why I'm naming these, you're gonna get it after a while. So we're gonna come back to the wheel object. We are here inside children, we have created this transform. Now when you go inside transform, we go inside children. Now what we usually do, we usually add a base node. We're gonna select any sort of object that resembles closest to this shape. But now what you can do is you can go to use, and we can go select wheel 1. So let's select wheel 1. See, it automatically wraps around this wheel. The same thing you can do is you can add another transform in bounding the children, in the children part of the bounding object. Then we go to base nodes, add a transform, and over here we can see that we can, under children, we can add wheel 2. We can use wheel 2, the shape of wheel 2. So see, we have perfectly aligned these two to collision envelopes for this certain objects. We could have done this for this as well. We could have used the shape, but over here this I'm just showing you these two examples, and whichever situation fits it perfectly, you're gonna use that in that situation. So this is how you can add collision envelopes to certain objects. Alright, now let's see how you can add collision to the walls and to the ground. Now for the walls, let's select the one of the walls, and we're gonna right click on it. You're gonna right transform to solid. So we've got a bounding object, and as before, as you have learned, for this object we can go to the previous shape and we can name the shape, let's say wall 1, and go to bounding object, go to plus, and use select wall 1. So it has already been selected as a solid object, or we have added collision to this surface. Now let's do it for wall 2 as well. First of all, go to children, shape, let's name this wall 2, and then transform this to a solid. Go to the bounding object, use wall 2. So do this for the rest of the walls as well. So I'm gonna be a little bit fast in this part because we are doing the same operation. So let's go to bounding object plus, use and wall 3, and finally let's transform this to a solid. Children, shape, wall 4, and just add this to the bounding object. Okay, so we are done selecting this 4 walls, making this 4 walls as the we have given this 4 walls collision. So if you can see by as you am selecting these walls, you can see the handles showing up. So as I've mentioned before, that means that we have added collision. So now let's add a collision to the floor. Now before that, let me just show you that what happens if you do not add collision to the floor. So if I let's say import a robot, let's take a Pioneer robot. So let's use the 3DX version. So this is a basically, it's got sensors up front, and if it's gonna move around, and if he sees an object, then it's gonna change its direction. However, when we try to play it, we play the simulation, see what happens. See, the robot falls down because our ground, it has got no collision envelope. Now for that, what you can do is we just delete this. So our floor, it's this one, but when you right click on it, there is no option to transform this. So now if you have got a problem like that, what you can do is you can go to plus and create a solid node, and I'm gonna name it as floor solid. Alright, so now I'll change it to, yeah, it's basically solid, so there is no need to change it. So go to the bounding object, and what you need to do is we need to give this shape, this certain shape over here. So over here, what you can do is you can go to geometry, and since we haven't used any transformation, so you can see that there is no option or children over here. So when you go to the floor shape, the floor solid object over here, it's a bounding. Go to bounding, click on plus, go to use, and see we have already got a floor, and we have added the floor over here. So, and in the child, we also need to give a shape to the solid floor as well, because what we have done is that in the bounding object we have given this solid floor solid. We have told it that you'll act as a collision or a collision envelope, just like the floor shape right on top that we have used. But now we need to give it a shape. Now for shape, the same thing, go to use and floor shape. So we are done with this, and since we don't need the previously floored shape defined node anymore, so we're going to delete that. Click on OK. So now we are done. See, if you click on it, we can already see a collision handle over here, or a handle. So that means we have added collision to this floor. So now if you do the same thing, that means if you try to bring a Pioneer robot, the 3DX version of it. So let's click on this, and yep, the sensors are right over there. Okay, so if we just try to simulate this robot, bring it right over here. I'll just bring the wall closer. Okay, so now if we try to simulate this environment, see, the robot is actually going around, but as you can see that it has stopped because there is a collision over here. So I'll just change the direction of the robot. Just pause this. I'll change the direction of the robot to this direction and just simulate the software. So see, it's trying to change the direction, but it's as it going forward, so there is no place to go. So this is how we can add collision to our software. So the robot would have fallen right downwards, and now it's not, because we have added collision envelope to the floor and also to the walls. So this is how it's going to work. Thank you so much.